the world is not about conflicts. There is much more in the world. So the future in Armenia is actually in science, education, technology, in nothing else.
Well, we're so happy and thankful that you are bringing the festival to Armenia and are also enabling 1,000 of our students from Teach For Armenia's partner communities in Armenia and Artsakh to attend and benefit from the festival. Dr. Israelian, thank you so much for being with us today. You are on Teach For Armenia's Ask podcast, and this is a little bit of a different format. So thank you for being our first guest in this new format. You know, we're friends, and so I'm going to ask you some questions related to your work, but what I really want to do today also is just to get to know you better and for our audience to get to know you better. So that's why my first question to you is, when did you fall in love with the stars and with music?
Thank you for inviting. Well, I think first with music.
With
then
music.
With stars, yes. Music comes first.
Interesting.
So, right.
As an astrophysicist, that's interesting that music still
Absolutely.
comes first.
Yeah, I think my love with music first emerged when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. It's because my sisters were super fans of classical music, and we had the Beatles. That was the late 60s, and all sorts of music. They were, you know, and I grew up in a family with lots of music.
Any professional musicians or?
No, never professional musicians, but my sister used to play piano. We had a piano at home. My sister was studying piano, and my parents attempted to take me to piano school, and but it failed completely.
Is it because of solfeggio?
It's because of solfeggio, and I was hating the piano school, and my teacher was so tough with me, and so basically I left the school in 4 or 5 months. So I couldn't carry on. Although I had music inside, and it was, but no, nevertheless, I think it wasn't for me. Later, I learned playing piano, but just by myself at home, just practicing 1 finger, 2 fingers, and then 2 hands, and then more and more, and I ended up playing better than my sister. Went to school for 8 years, so I could play much more complicated things than piano. I could play jazz, I could improvise, and she couldn't. She was very nervous. She said, "What the hell is this?" I mean, so I studied music 8 years, and I can't play those things that you're doing. I was like, "Yeah, that's it."
Nothing like a childhood competition with your siblings.
No. And then guitar. So I took guitar, and again the same with guitar, practicing 1, 2 days and years and years and years, and then it comes. Then he ended up playing in a school band. Actually, we had a band with guys from Pushkin School. That was a Russian school in Yerevan, right?
Yes.
So my bandmate was Armen Martirosyan, the famous composer, the jazz band. So we used to play with him. He was a leader of our band. He was singing Beatles, and we were like chaps with bass guitar. That was so fun. So at that point, when I was like 15, 16, nothing about the stars, no science. So I was heavily in music, mostly with hard rock music. That was the 70s already. And then I think the stars came with sci-fi. The sci-fi, so basically from sci-fi movies.
Which
sci-fi
movie
movies
impacted you
I
the
loved
most?
Solaris,
Okay.
Stalker. There were a couple of Soviet sci-fi movies, but they were brilliant. It was classical sci-fi. So the movies took me to sci-fi literature. So I went to reading day and night, 24/7, reading. An entire sci-fi classical literature from Bradbury, Isaac Asimov, and all that stuff. And then the sci-fi took me to science, to stars. It's very interesting because reading sci-fi, I realized that I don't understand many things. Because in sci-fi, you need to have a basic knowledge of science. They're talking about some basic things in physics. And my knowledge was literally zero. Because at school, I was not interested in physics or math and nothing. So very low marks. So it was one of the worst in a class. Right, no, zero interest. And then, and thanks to sci-fi, but actually I graduated school with very low marks. I had no idea what I'm going to do in my life. So I finished the school and I decided I'll go to work. Can't study at the university because I know nothing about nothing. so I couldn't even enter the university because my marks were so low. But at some point I decided, okay, I'm going to study physics and astrophysics and so on. So I was, but the thing is, I couldn't even go with private classes because first I was feeling ashamed that my knowledge was so low that anyone studying with me would feel so embarrassing. So this guy does nothing about nothing, so I don't have to do that. But so I decided, okay, I'm going to start by myself. So self-studying is the best thing. So I decided to collect all textbooks of maths and physics from basic, from 6th grade or 5th grade school, and just like this, and studying very hard, very difficult. So, I had no one to discuss and to help to solve the problems and anything. So I was just studying alone. But that's it, and it was So in 6 or 7 months, I managed to go ahead to reach a certain level that I could get to the point when I could study for university already.
Was pursuing music professionally ever interesting to you?
No, I was never interested to go to make a professional musical career.
Just a hobby?
It's just for hobby.
I see.
Yeah. But astronomy, so at that point, I decided, okay, I want to study astronomy, not to become an astronomer. It's very interesting. So I never wanted to be a professional scientist. Never had in mind. Actually, I never wanted to be professional, whatever it is, right? So it was always for an interest. So I was always just interested, okay, so this is interesting, I want to study this. But not that because I want to become an astronomer. No.
You were just interested in it?
I was just interested, yeah. And even today, if I'm interested, I will go and study something. Not because I want to become, not to make my CV or my career. It's just because of curiosity. So the same thing happened with this. So you go to faculty of physics, not become a physicist or an astronomer, but just because of my curiosity. I wanted to study those things, right?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and then later, of course, it took me to a professional career, and I had to make a PhD and postdoc and so on.
So you did well in university?
I did very well, and that's thanks to this 1 year of hard working at home alone to handle all the basic course of physics and maths, right? So no one was helping me. And actually, the first year at university, I was much, much better than anyone graduating special schools with physics and maths and so on. And the guys were really surprised.
Wow.
So they didn't understand. So my parents were not in science. I didn't graduate at school with physical maths for special kids with knowledge in physics and maths. But I was brilliant. I'm super sharp in solving problems and everything. So university was with top marks and excellent marks. But I couldn't even attend lectures. I never attended lectures at university.
You were just a self-learner, it seems.
I was a self-learner, and all my life I was a self-learner. I'm actually very bad in hearing lectures. I fell asleep. I can't stand more than 15 minutes a lecture because you have to be brilliant, super lecturer, kind of an actor, someone to capture my attention for more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's very hard because I just disconnect 15 minutes later. So that was my profile. People are different.
It's fascinating.
I know a lot of people who can't really stand more than 10 minutes lectures.
People are very different learners.
People are very different learners. So I was a kind of learner. I have to read. I have to read. If I don't read, no matter who is speaking, how he's speaking, it doesn't get into my brain. I have to read this.
This concept of self-learning really resonates for us at Teach For Armenia, and especially now, with access to the internet and so many free resources online, kids can really self-learn and choose different paths in life. And their financial circumstances or where they're born doesn't necessarily have to dictate, what kind of profession they choose. The world is sort of much more open. And so hearing you do this exact thing back then when, you were living in the Soviet Union and there wasn't a lot of this available information. If it's still possible, if it was possible for you back then, it's definitely possible now.
Because I had a brilliant library of physics and maths. I was buying books. Books were very cheap actually. So you could go to a bookstore and buy the best books in physics and maths for nothing. So me as a student, I had a brilliant library and I used to study with books, and that's it.
It's amazing.
With different books. But today you have even more options thanks to YouTube and thanks to these courses. And so I was always wondering, because we complain that in Armenia we don't have enough teachers in physics and maths and so on. So we need brilliant teachers, those who can inspire and so on. And it's not easy to get them in any country, not just in Armenia. It's a problem, right? So I thought, why don't we organize, why don't we find the best someone who in Armenian can give amazing course in physics and maths, record this in a video for YouTube.
That makes sense.
Brilliant. So you will see how many followers that you get.
Yeah.
You get amazing, inspiring one teacher in Armenia. You just find that one. Who is the man? Who is this guy? Who is she or who is he? Who is the one? And then you organize. It may take 1 year, it may take a year, but you record lectures, brilliant, on Blackboard and explaining and so on, and that can become a hit for villages, for remote parts, so for those places who don't have access, they don't have good teachers. So there you have it.
Yeah, we'll talk about the teacher shortage issue in a little bit, but before then, I want to understand, when you graduated university, you did your PhD in Armenia also. Yeah. And then when I was reading about your body of work, something really stood out to me, which I believe is the beginning of the concept for the Starmus Festival. You were studying sound through astronomy.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What was the study about, and how did it bring you to Starmus?
Yeah. It was a study of sound waves. Sound waves in stellar atmospheres, in stars. So stars are gaseous spheres. It's a gas, basically. It's a gas. It's a hot gas, 5, 6, 10,000 degrees gas, but it's still a gas. So you may have sound waves, pressure waves in stars. And so to detect or to study sound waves in stars, you need super precise technologies. So that you had to wait until 21st century to have those technologies which can measure variations or surface variations or velocities in stellar atmospheres with precision of 10, 20 centimeters per second. That's a super high precision, measuring velocities with this precision. And that allows you to study vibrations, pulsations in stellar atmospheres. So these are caused by sound waves inside of these atmospheres, right? And if we study the amplitudes and frequency of those waves, we can basically recover the form of the wave. We call waveform, right? That's what we call in music a timbre. Timbre, right? That what is characterizing the sound, the musical sound. So the difference between musical instruments is not a frequency or an amplitude, is a waveform. So guitar and piano, they are different because they have different waveforms, right? And apparently stars have different waveforms. And so they have different sounds. And those differences depend on the mass of the star, the density of the atmosphere, even a chemical composition. So if you have enough metals or hydrogen or helium, so those things will change the characteristics of sound waves in stellar atmospheres.
Who would have thought that there's so much overlap between the study of stars and the vibrations that they have and the vibrations that musical instruments have?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It's fascinating, especially because when you realize that in stars, those sounds are created by nature. So the laws that govern the evolution and the structure of stars, they also control the sound waves and the timbre and the sounds of those waves. So it's not just because those waves are there, it's because the laws of physics would never allow different types of waves. So those should be the waves that we have in these types of stars. In those stars we will have different waves. So, and it's all because of the simple physics that controls the structure and the evolution of stars. That is super interesting, and especially it's even more interesting when you realize that certain types of sounds appear in stars at some point of their evolution and then they disappear. So they can come up for just a couple of thousand years and they are gone. They will never repeat in the future. And that's because the star went through certain evolutionary stage. And at that stage, because of the reconstruction of the interiors and so on, you had those sounds appearing in the atmosphere and then they will be gone forever after a few thousand years. And then millions of years, you will have no sounds. And then can be 1 billion years later, you will have different sounds. So it's so interesting. And I was studying the whole thing about these sound waves. It was so fascinating. I said, Jesus Christ, it's like the star is singing. It's a song from the birth of the star to the end. So during this entire evolution of 5 billion or 10 billion years, the star will go through different phases with different sounds, and even phases of silence. And even phases of silence when there are no sound waves, no stable sound waves during 1 billion years or so, right? This is very, very interesting. I was very deeply involved with this stuff, studying, oh Jesus, what's going on?
I can't wait for our students to listen to this podcast, because just hearing you talk just reminds you that the world and the universe is just so big, and there's so many things that we haven't even begun thinking about or exploring. And so, I'm just so excited for our kids who are artistic and don't think that science is for them, for them to get excited about science, and vice versa for kids who are interested in science but don't think that music is for them. Everything ultimately is connected together when I hear you speak about this.
Absolutely, and it's just astronomy. But if you think that there are different branches of science, like AI is now trying to create music with AI, and the whole topic is just emerging about feelings. How are you going to program feelings? Can you program that if the human feelings are programmed? If they're caused by any chemical reactions and all that stuff, and can we program that? Can AI create feelings? And so when you go deep into this and try to merge this with the music world and with arts, it's just amazing. It's a whole spectrum. So I think it's very exciting times for those who want to explore this cross-section, this merger of arts and science. And I always say there's more and more artists interested in science, because science is becoming very cool. It's becoming even more exciting than before. And because they have access through internet, through lectures, to festivals like Starmus, a lot of artists go just to enjoy the talks and talk to scientists to say what these guys are doing. This is very interesting. And so that's why as artists need inspiration. The art is based on feelings. You have to feel something to create, right? And artists, they're just always exploring what they can feel. They can be inspired here or there. Because as I was always saying, that the standard feelings, the standard arts for 2,000-3,000 years is based on standard feelings like hate, love, and heroes and all that stuff. But now at the 21st century, you have many different feelings affecting and inspiration through genetic engineering and so what it means to be human.
Right.
Can you create an artificial human? And what's behind this, you know? So when artist gets into this, they're shocked. They think, Jesus Christ, what is this?
Right. And so am I right to say that this idea for Starmus was born through your study of the sound and the stars, and you co-founded it, or you conceptualized it with someone who's actually a very well-known musician?
Yeah, with Brian May.
Exactly. He was with the band Queen, and he also was interested in science and I think became an astronomer. Yeah.
He actually, for Brian, was just the opposite. He started as an astronomer.
He started as an astronomer.
He started as an astronomer. He was an amateur musician and so on, but he decided astronomy as his job, as his profession, right? So he started a PhD in Imperial College, and then he was sent to Tenerife, to Canary Islands, when he was 22, I think. So a young student, he was sent to Canary Islands for 1 year to do observations of zodiacal light from Tenerife, from the place where I am based now, Canary Island. So he spent 1 year top of the mountain in Teide doing observations of zodiacal light for his PhD thesis. And he published papers in astronomy, professional papers, and his PhD was nearly ready and for submission. And at some point he decided, okay, I'm not going to continue this. I want to go to do music. So Brian left science and left astronomy. He returned actually to London and formed Queen. So his parents were very upset. So his dad was super upset because his dad was an engineer, and his dream was that his son will become a scientist. And it was very close because Brian was one of the top students at the university. He was very smart, and his PhD was really good. So he published papers and everything was ready. He was really going out, and then suddenly he decides, no, stop, I'm doing music. So he was telling me that his parents were so upset with him.
But they were probably proud of him later on.
And then later, his dad, he realized that probably that was the right decision because he was happy with music, right? So, and then many years later, when we met in 98, something 25 years ago, we met and we became friends, and I slowly convinced him to finish his PhD. So he was a bit scared and saying, no, that's too much. I can't do it. It's been already 25 years. And then I said, no, but the job is done. Basically, you published your papers, you finished your work. Now you just have to submit your PhD. You should write a new introduction, change a couple of things, and your thesis is ready. And because he's a perfectionist, it has to be done. Everything has to be perfect for Brian. So he said, I can't do it. This is too much, And so it took me actually 4 or 5 years slowly to persuade him. And at the end, I said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
And you did it.
Yeah, and we did it. And I think he was happy that this work was completed, and turn the page. And I was always telling him, Brian, turn the page. You have to turn. You never do anything and leave it. You always finish things. Yeah. So why a PhD is left behind and without complete? And I was saying, yeah, that's right, but that's difficult. It was a different time, blah, blah. But at the end, so we finished, we submitted PhD, and then we were talking about science communication, how important is astronomy, why we have to inspire kids with music and science. And then so gradually, again, it took us about 10 years to come to this idea of Starmus. It didn't happen in a year. So we had so many discussions about why we have to spend money on science, why astronomy. Astronomy today, James Webb Telescope is 10 billion euros project. So a lot of people ask me, well, why do we have to spend 10 billion to have a project, space telescope, 6 meters, 6.5 meters wide, just to take these nice pictures? Yes, that's why we have to spend taxpayers' money, 10 billion, and then operational cost of a telescope during the next 5 years is, again, fantastic. It's so expensive. Why we have to do it? So we've been discussing those things with Brian for many years. So, and then we realized, okay, we have to open this discussion to create a festival, and we need the help of artists.
And you founded Starmus in 2011.
Exactly. We founded it in 2011. And we also realized that we need to join forces with those artists who appreciate science, who respect science, who like science, who think that the world cannot survive without science. So we need it. And unfortunately, there were many artists like him thinking that there's no future and the world will be a horrible place if we don't value, if we don't support science, if we don't recognize science. And a brilliant example is the film Don't Look Up.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorites now. I think it's a very strong message. It's a super strong message to the world where we are at this stage, with science communication. So this was.
So can I ask you a question just as an Armenian? I know you're very proudly from Armenia. I know you come here a lot. You've done so much for Armenia very quietly also over the years. And I know that the festival, you probably thought of also bringing it to Armenia probably since its inception. I know that you wanted to do it in 2021, but you couldn't because of COVID. So why did you choose or decide to do the festival in Armenia this year?
Yeah, we actually postponed the festival, right? At some point when the war in Ukraine started just a couple of months ago, so we had a meeting of our advisory board. So we were saying, this is insane. I mean, and the whole situation is so bad. Maybe we don't have to do it. We can just move and do it somewhere else, right? And then I was insisting, I was saying, no, Armenia needs this festival, especially now, after war. After this very difficult situation in Armenia, especially for young people. We need to give them this shot of inspiration. We need to bring this atmosphere of Starmus. We have to show them that the world is not just about wars. The world is not about conflicts. There is much more in the world. So the future in Armenia is actually in science, education, technology, in nothing else. So that was my view, my personal view. I was always saying that, no, this is the future of Armenia. Everything else will come. Do this, and everything else, the economy and whatever you want, it's all, everything depends on education, science, technology, and arts, of course, right? And so hopefully, fortunately, I managed to convince our advisory board that the festival is very much needed in Armenia. So actually, young people need this festival. And I was happy to hear the same just a couple of days ago from the ambassador of United Nations in Armenia. She was asking, did you realize that your festival is much more needed in Armenia than any European country? I totally agree with you. Yeah. Because in young democracies like in Armenia or Georgia, or she was mentioning Tunisia also. So she's saying in young democracies, festivals like this are super important, much more important than in a country like Denmark or Sweden, or, you have to do those festivals here. And that was my message also to my advisory board, that let's do it in Armenia.
So it was a calling. You felt called to do it. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense to me. Well, we're so happy and thankful that you are bringing the festival to Armenia and are also enabling 1,000 of our students from Teach For Armenia's partner communities in Armenia and Artsakh to attend and benefit from the festival. I mean, I can only imagine how excited our kids are going to be able to be part of this world that you've created. And also just to get to learn and to know people and science from a completely different perspective.
Let me tell you that you are doing a brilliant job. So
thank you.
I was telling you, it's such an important project. I mean, bring teachers to villages.
And I think what you said, thank you so much. And I think really when people ask us, why do we do what we do? Can you attain significant academic achievement if someone is going there for just a few years? And these are all really great questions, and we have a lot of data and other things that we use to measure our impact on our success. But at the end of the day, what you said about motivation and inspiration is really at the core of why we do the work that we do. Our teachers are in these communities that are far away, on the border. Artsakh is now a completely surrounded area, and having people move and live and breathe the air that our kids breathe, is already a really important, I think, step in the right direction. So thank you. And I think you're right. The more inspirational movements and conferences and opportunities we can create for our students, the better. But if we sort of come out of space and go down to earth and down into the reality of Armenia right now, you mentioned teacher shortages. You're right, we have approximately 1,300 schools in the country and about 600 vacancies at the moment. And these are vacancies that are in core subjects, specifically STEM subjects. And so, we were a country that prided itself on high literacy rates. We were a country that was known to be the center of science and technology during the Soviet era. We don't have these literacy rates anymore. We do have major shortages in core STEM subjects. I mean, I think just this year, there was 1 or 2 physics majors graduating the university. So my question is, and especially since you grew up, in an era in Armenia when our schools were considered to be stronger, how did we get here? Like, why are we where we are right now? And do you think we fully comprehend where we are at the moment? And if yes, why? And if no, how do we get people to understand how difficult this situation is right now in Armenia?
Yeah. Oh, it's a very hard question.
Yeah, I left the hard question to last.
Yeah. Honestly, there are so many parameters involved in this, But actually, we know why we ended up in this situation. It's pretty much clear. Collapse of the Soviet Union, war, and we know what happens after war. Who will lead the country after war? Those who were in war. So naturally, that's everything is normal, is a consequence of things that happened 30 years ago. And then the fact that the science and education would go down, that's also normal. So following the laws, the rules of... But what we can do at this point, now imagine that we are a young democracy, so we realized where we are. So we lost the war, and we are here at this point, and we want to do something to change things, right? We can always say, education and those are important, let's put more money and so on. But it's not so easy, it's not only this, because I'm convinced that media and social media play a super important role here, because they are the ones to change people's mind and mood and everything. So if we have our media not 99.9% talking about wars and politics, but just 5% talk about different things, being a bit positive, just a bit positive, and talk more about science projects and education, blah, 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 and less about depressive things and so, because at the end, you don't change things. I mean, you can talk about war 24/7.
But nothing happens from it.
Nothing happens.
Yeah.
It only creates depression. I'm just talking about young people, kids. So what is the point? Why 15, 16, 14 years old have to hear 24/7 about war, politics.
It changes your psychology.
It's all the time the same: Turkey, Russia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Russia, Armenia, everything. And sometimes US and sometimes China, right? But it's the same thing every day.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very serious problem.
I think you're totally right. And
very serious problem.
Yes. And, change happens over time. And I know a lot of us want change to happen overnight, and I think you're right. It's important to talk about good things that are happening just in the education sector. There's a new education strategy that finally came out, after decades of us not having one. There are, improvements in conditions for teachers. They might not be incredibly significant or substantial yet, but there's a move in the right direction.
Yeah.
So, when I think about other cases, like we like to talk about Finland and we like to talk about Singapore, I mean, these were all countries that were, not doing too well just under 100 years ago. And have made significant progress. So there was always a starting point. And I think our starting point is actually much farther ahead than some of these other countries. So I'm personally very positive and I'm very hopeful. And, when I look at our kids and when you look at the volunteers that are working for Starmus, and once you meet our students also, and you see that they just need a spark to become that bright spot for the country and for our nation.
Yeah.
Then your whole thing changes, and you, I think, stop talking about the problems and you start acting.
Yeah. And I think our public TV, they should invite you and people like you regularly, every month, every 3 weeks, to discuss your problems in Armenia, to have debates, to have panel discussions, so they have to do those things so often. And those panels and debates have to be about how to improve education, what to do for science, and so on and so on. If you follow now, it goes 99.9% about politics again. Yeah. It's all the time the same faces, same people, the same guys who are in politics will appear on a mainstream media 100 times a month, 100 times a week. I hardly see you on mainstream and public TV. That's wrong, but this is why the problem is there.
But
the problem is there. The problem is because I see the party leaders, some unknown party leaders, every 2 hours on a TV talking about the same thing. Talking about exactly the same. You would think that these guys are Nobel laureates, they have brilliant ideas. No, nothing even close. So my question is why, and there are people like you who are trying to improve education, to this, to do that, and so on. So you should be there.
Just a disclaimer, I did not ask for this
promotion. I know, but that's my view.
Thank you, Dr.
And I know people who are actively trying to change things in Armenia, but from a different perspective. Yeah. So I would say, these people need to have much more attention in media.
Well, what I'm happy about personally is that with Starmus, we actually do have a lot of the Starmus story that takes pops up in media platforms is one of my favorite stories to read. So hopefully, at least in the month of September, we'll have more positive stories than not. I want to end our conversation today with just asking one last question, and that's, what keeps someone like you up at night? Like, what is a question that you ponder, and is it the red planet?
No, not the red planet. I think I have 2 things. No, I have a couple of things going on.
So you have a few things that keep you up at night.
So one thing is Starmus, of course, and I'm always thinking how to make things better, how to make Starmus more attractive and so on, right? So one thing is Starmus. The other thing is my science project. So I'm doing a couple of interesting things in science. So one is related again still to compact objects, to black hole stuff. And the other project is related to how to find alien life with totally different methods, not the methods that we are using now. that basically fail, and
Yeah.
we still have
We
no
haven't met our
evidence.
friends
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. But I'm thinking about different techniques based on archive data that we already have in astronomy archives. So how we can scan all this data and search for a couple of things which may signal alien life, right? So I've been working on these projects for the last 2-3 years, and it's very exciting. So I'm getting more and more excited with some results coming already very soon.
Wow.
And so that takes my time. And obviously music, so I'm always playing at home and doing some my stuff.
You know, Dr. Israelian, you're just, to me personally, very inspirational, because it just goes to show that a person can have really different angles to them and be successful in multiple facets.
Sure.
So thank you so much for sharing who you are with us today. And just a request, if you do find a way to those aliens, can I be one of the first people that finds out about
Absolutely.
it?
I promise.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.